to the Khyber Pass podcast. I'm your host, Paul Metzger, bringing you conversations with improvisers that have performed at the Khyber Pass Cafe Thursday evening concert series. As always, these conversations and the presentation through podcast form is made possible by the generous support of the Khyber Pass Cafe, Grand Avenue in St. Paul. Voted #1 Middle Eastern restaurant in the Twin Cities. This episode we bring you Pat Moriarty, alto saxophonist. He performed in duet with percussionist Phil Hey. We have a sample from the concert to present, followed by the interview. It was a pleasure to sit down with Pat, discuss his history and origin. Dating back to 1970, where he appeared on the local performance jazz scene. Please enjoy Pat Moriarty.
Moriarty, thank you so much for coming to play tonight and be part of the podcast as well.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. We haven't had you play at the Khyber yet, and that seems a shame as you're one of the cats in town, and we hope to remedy that starting tonight.
All right, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to kind of get to know your background a little bit briefly.
Sure.
Like, where do you come from?
I come from the northern suburbs of Minneapolis.
Okay.
I was raised in Blaine, went to Coon Rapids High School.
Okay, up that way.
Yeah, Anthony Cox and I went to high school together.
No shit.
He's 2 years younger than me,
Uh-huh.
but we went to high school together.
That's crazy.
And actually did a little bit of playing back at that point.
Yeah?
A little bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so as a young cat, before you're playing horn, what kind of caught your interest about music, or that sort of the first glimmers that you saw that led you into?
Yeah. Well, I think as a kid, I always liked music.
Mm-hmm.
My parents had some Perry Como, and they had some, that's how I learned like Devil in the Deep Blue Sea, and then they had some old 45s like Chattanooga Choo Choo, and some things that were like, they were pop things, but they had a little bit of jazz flavor. Some of those things did.
Uh-huh.
And I love that music. Also, my dad was a very good whistler, or is a very good whistler actually, still. And I liked whistling too quite a bit, more than singing when I was a kid.
So you took after the whistle that your pops was blasting.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's one of those whistles then. Did people whistle more in the 50s? That's what I remember.
I think so.
And then now, no one gives a fuck about whistling.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know. But, the Andy Griffith Show was on, and the whole theme song was whistled.
Yeah.
Right? They gave everybody permission. I mean, when I was older, I'd be walking. I'd have memorized Miles Davis solo or something like that. And I'd be walking down the street whistling the Miles Davis solo.
Yeah.
But that's So that was like the first approach to music, and then where I went to school, you started band in 6th grade if you were going to start band.
And you sort of felt, I'll try band, or was it?
I thought I'd try band. My mom had played in band when she was in high school. My parents are from Pine City, Minnesota.
I know Pine City.
Yeah, right.
It's right by Lake Pokegama.
Yes, it certainly is.
A little bit south.
Yes, did a little bit of agate picking on Lake Pokegama when I was a kid, and around there. But
I did some time up that way.
So anyway, they're from up there. My mom had played saxophone. Actually, she played she tried different instruments. She ended up being a saxophone player. And after a little thinking about it, I thought I'd try that. And
so when you, in 6th grade, are going down to the band room, you're saying, I want to try playing sax.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember. I have no idea what I thought about that.
Right.
Actually,
Right.
But very luckily, my mom's parents actually had Louis Armstrong and Count Basie records, and also Muggsy Spanier.
Okay.
And I eventually got those records, but and so
just to say, that's a beautiful moment when the records.
Yes.
And then they come to you, and then that weird feeling too of, I don't know if you ran into this, but like I remember getting like this Ella Fitzgerald record from my mom's collection. She just thought it was so odd that a young person would want their mom's record,
Yeah.
But it was just, that's how you could get them, before you knew how to go to a store or a library or anything. Yeah.
And then, frankly, by the time I was in 7th grade, Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass was a huge thing. My mother had all of those records, everyone, and there was a little bit of tangential jazz stuff that you could get from that too,
Sure.
because they had a traditional jazz feel on some things. So, and I like to play by ear.
Okay.
So those things kind of got me started in that direction. But I listened to mostly traditional jazz until I was about 16.
And so what would that, like what? You had Louis Armstrong.
Now, Louis Armstrong, Basie, Muggsy Spanier. I loved his cornet playing.
Okay.
And then there was a radio show on Sundays called Dixie Date, which was all traditional stuff.
Okay.
And then I heard the local guys around here too, like Doc Evans and Dick Pendleton and those guys.
Okay.
And then also Preservation Hall Band used to come here in the summer every year too.
Yep.
And so I mostly listened to and emulated that, and actually had sort of a traditional jazz combo when I was in junior high school, as kind of a starting point. But as a kid, I was also listening to King Curtis and Herb Alpert and other kinds of like pop music that had some sort of jazz connection to them too. But always that, and then so that's kind of so up to that point. That's what I was listening to.
So when did it turn, because there's that moment where it turns serious, where it's like, I'm going all in on this thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, more or less. I think I was about 16 years old, and I think I had two tracks going. One was music, and the other one was I was really interested in aviation. I've always liked anything that flies. And eventually it came down to the big decision was, I could get a little bit of money, and basically it was kind of like I figured I could either buy a professional grade saxophone or I could earn a pilot's license.
Damn.
So I got the horn. And so at that point, it's like for sure, it's like I could choose a lot of different things. I know about a lot of different things, but I really got to do this,
You went, that's beautiful. When you think of it, like, so you're young, you're 16, and you're really weighing out heavy shit as a young guy. Really?
Yeah, trying to find a path,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so you go down and you get like a nice horn.
Yeah.
You must have been the happiest cat.
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah.
I mean, were you playing a school instrument before that?
No, I was playing a kind of a midline Selmer Signet for a while. And before that, I had an old used alto. My parents had got those for me, and actually, they helped me out with my pro horn too. We did a deal on that, and I was actually 17 by the time I actually acquired that. But that's kind of like that was sort of the ages of 16 and 17 is kind of like when the process more or less crystallized.
All right, so that comes into your life, and then what's happening? So you're still in band. You're in high school, yeah, and then are you interested in? Do you have a teacher at that? Like are you studying with anyone outside of high school?
I was a junior in high school when I finally started studying with somebody.
Yeah.
Coon Rapids High School, late 60s, early, up to about 1970 there. Not a lot of people studied privately.
Yeah.
There'd be 200 kids in the band program. Probably not more than 10 of them took lessons. And so that was, and I was always I'm always been a little bit autodidactic, and I'm always like, I can figure this out. And then I realized, you know what? You're not getting the results that you need.
Yeah.
And some other kid says, well, you should study with so-and-so. And so I said, okay, well, I'll do that.
Yeah. Because you can still be autodidactic with
Yes.
a little bit more information that comes in, and someone, you don't have to give up your whatness.
Right.
But I know what you're saying. Like the reluctance is understanding.
Yeah.
Understandable to me.
Yeah.
Dig. And so how did that go? You start running through.
So then I started. I had a pretty good teacher in in high school, and I started studying out of the standard technique books and stuff like that, and getting the scales together, and developing a technique. And also actually got to be pretty decent altissimo player when I was in high school.
All right.
And it was always, I was always the weird kid who wanted it to be different than everybody else. So I if it seemed like there was something strange that you could do with the saxophone, then I was all over that. I was like,
right away you thought that was all right. So what year is that? Like, is this taking you?
It's about 1970 or so. I graduated high school in 71.
Okay, so you're out of high school in 71.
Yeah.
And I mean, from what little I know about you, you hooked up with Phil in like 73?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not too long after.
No, it's not. As far as my listening, by the time I was out of high school, I was listening to mostly modern music, and I was listening to Ornette Coleman and Eric Dolphy and middle period Coltrane and such, And then by the time
that's a lot of terrain to cover. From Louis Armstrong.
And I think
to Ornette.
Then I went to the University of Minnesota for a while
to study music.
To study music, yeah. And and records then, of course, Discount Records, Oblivion Records.
Yeah.
Oblivion Records bought, first record I think I bought there was Anthony Braxton's 4 Alto.
Damn, look at you going down. All right.
Okay. Which gave, so you learned a lot about what you probably should know if you're going to get in, it's like, holy cats, what are these guys doing,
Yeah.
And so Phil, he wasn't around when I first went to college. He was in Hawaii for a year or two, but we had a mutual friend. Phil went to Roseville area high school, or actually it was Ramsey High School at that time in those days. And now it's Roseville area high school. And anyway, there was a trumpet player.
That's where you taught.
Yeah, I also ended up teaching there for a really long time.
That's a fast forward, but that's an odd coincidence.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, but
a lot of really good young players came out of the Roseville schools in those years. A lot.
Okay.
And actually, they still do. Anyway, so there was a trumpet player who had been a classmate of Phil's at Roseville, and I think it was getting like the end of the school year, and Jack Angerhofer, the trumpet player, was saying, well, I have this friend who's coming back from Hawaii, he plays drums. You guys ought to get together. He's great, And I said, cool. And people are always telling you that there's some great player that they know. I mean, even when you're 20 years old, somebody's is telling you that all the time.
Yeah.
And usually they are good players, but it's not. And so there was, he said, there's this jam session over at this guy's house, and it's more of a rock jam session than a jazz jam session. It's more, he asked me to come over, so I went over, and so we're just improvising, over, riffs and modes and stuff like that. And, I just, as I'm playing, I'm just realizing this drummer is the hardest listening musician I have ever been around. I had never had an experience where somebody was actually that attentive to all of the music as that. That was, I mean, yes, he played great, but that was not what was important. The important thing was like, wow, this guy is an incredible listener.
Yeah, man.
So we started talking on it while everybody's taking a break, and then we started playing together. So
there it was.
Yeah.
Wow. And I know what you mean. Like, people can hip you to this player or that, but there really has to be that certain connection to make it work for you. That it's someone you could actually play with and get on with in that way. And that's awesome. You two came together, made that recording in
77, and then released it in 78.
Yeah. And so that's where your history starts as a duo in that early 70s time period where my understanding thing, like in the early 70s, would be people were less like really dedicated inside a genre, where you like the jam session you're talking about, where it's like some rock bass and some jazz bass. People were, I think, more open-minded, or is that what was happening?
You know,
or was
I don't really know.
else?
I mean, that was just that one session and stuff like that. And I, went to other. There were just all kinds of things. I mean, Ed Berger used to have jam sessions at his apartment all the time, and that was, we played bebop,
Yeah.
and then a lot of the parks, down, and especially at least the ones I went to on the south side, Gene Adams, the trumpet player, was always hosting those, and there was all kinds of people, and mostly playing, pretty standard jazz repertoire, but like all kinds of people were in there, like trying out their stuff,
God, I haven't thought about Gene forever, man.
I hadn't either until just now.
I played with him, like in like the mid '70s, some kind of a theater-based thing that he was in and I was in and stuff,
right.
and it's just it's pulling me back into a time thing a little bit, hearing his name.
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so then what's happening? There's duo work with Phil, but what else was happening?
So we didn't start out with a duo. I mean, we actually started out by forming a quartet, more like, or a trio. I mean, originally a friend of Phil's from Roseville, Tom Heinig, was the bass player, and then Anthony Cox was the guitar player.
I would love to hear some of that.
And but then it wasn't too long after that it was. I think we worked with Anthony for maybe like 6 months and maybe played like a gig with him or something like that.
Yeah.
Because our whole idea was that we'd have to rehearse for 2 years before we got a job. But we actually managed to do it in like 4 months. So.
So who had that idea of like 2 years of woodshedding?
I don't know. I think we all had it. I mean, it was just it just seemed so. The music just seemed so big.
Yeah.
And then so Anthony ended up getting a bass, and so we didn't want to have two bass players.
Yeah.
And so then it was a horn, and then we added a second drummer, a guy named Jim Pickrell, who also was a Roseville kid, who later on went out, ended up living in San Francisco, and in some kind of business, but playing on the side all the way along.
So what are you guys doing then? Are you doing tunes? Are you doing original stuff?
With that one, we're doing original tunes, and we're doing Ornette Coleman tunes. We had a Bobby Bradford tune, and a Your Lady by Coltrane was part of that book. I mean, it was just basically, there was an emphasis on Ornette early on, but also it was just like whatever tune happened to grab us, and think, and so it was like that. And then later on, we actually had a band that was only Ornette and Monk tunes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that would have been me and Phil with Tom Hubbard on bass, and Homer Lambrecht on trombone, and so we did a bunch. We did a lot with that, but somewhere shortly out in the earlier '70s, we started doing a duet thing, and the duet thing was mostly free improvisation. Yeah, and we rehearsed a lot.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I think Phil and I probably had 3 long rehearsals together in some band or other every week for years.
Yeah.
Just always rehearsing.
And so you knew each other's vocabulary.
Oh yeah.
He could read you. You could read him and know where things were going, and that comes through on the recording.
Yeah, I think one thing that I think Phil would agree with this too is, especially through the duo thing, in a lot of ways we sort of taught each other how to play.
Yeah.
We learned a lot from working on that, and we had a fantastic time. You know.
I bet. Yeah. And so that sort of Tom Hubbard ended up with Ed Berger, and so did Phil.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then, where do things go for you outside of that?
Oh, well, they went in a lot of different directions. I
Mhm.
mean, also in the mid to late 70s, I was with Dean Granrose's band Lapis for a few years.
Okay, I
And
love
that-
Dean's playing.
That was a great band. It was Homer Lambrecht again on trombone and Dean on guitar, Jay Epstein on drums,
Yeah.
no bass. Well, there was a bass, but that didn't last long.
Okay.
And that was all about playing Dean's tunes.
Yeah.
And he was just writing unbelievable compositions. Some were incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And then I also ended up playing with Sid Farrar quite a bit.
Okay.
I was a regular member of his quartet for quite a while. So I mean, for that mid-late 70s period was very. I was in a lot of bands at the same time,
And there were places to play.
and they all played.
Yeah.
Part of it, we still invented stuff.
Uh-huh.
I curated a series at the Guild of Performing Arts, so there was a jazz concert at the Guild every month from September through May.
Oh, okay.
And they were mostly groups that I was in or my groups, but then sometimes once or twice a year I would have somebody's band in there that I wasn't in.
Yeah.
Anthony and Phil and a guitar player named Mark Maestrovich had a band that was called Air.
Okay.
Before the other Air came out, and that was a great band.
Uh-huh.
So there was that late 70s. I mean, that was when we were in our early and mid 20s and stuff like that, and we had a tremendous amount of energy, and not so much on the responsibility side as you come to have later. You know how it goes, and so.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot going on there, and then a little bit later on, I went in a different direction with some of my stuff. We had something called the Pat Moriarty Ensemble, which was 3 horns and a piano, and that was a project that basically went from 1982 to 1989 or something.
Okay,
like
that's
that.
long term. So what do you got for horns?
Me and Homer.
Okay.
And then eventually it settled down to Robert Rumbles on trumpet.
Okay.
Robert eventually went out to Wesleyan, and now he's somewhere out in Wyoming.
Okay.
He's out of Anthony Braxton Big Band record, actually.
Okay.
And then Ellen Lease on piano. So me and Homer and Robert and Ellen. So,
Okay.
and that was all original stuff. And that band did more things that were theatric in nature.
Okay.
Do some, like piece for vacuum cleaners or something like that. Humdrum, and so that was a long-term project. We ended up having one piece on a Minnesota Composers Forum collaboration, a CD called Free Fall.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve Tibbetts had something on it too.
Oh, okay. Now, did you overlap with Steve much? I mean, because he was cooking at that time.
No, I know, and I'm sure I knew about him, but our circles didn't intersect. No.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that, and I actually got involved in some more like new music things, graphic notation scores.
Okay.
Homer and another guy, David Means, were both writing graphic notation scores. Homer wrote a series for me. And I was writing graphic scores and stuff like that, and so that was kind of interesting. Do you remember when New Music America was here in the early '80s?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was this festival, like week-long avant-garde music festival that would be a city would have it one year, then it would move to another city, and then the next year, so.
No, I don't
like
remember that.
It must have been '83. And so I worked with David Means on that. I mean, they had everybody. Philip Glass was here, but the Art Ensemble of Chicago here. Anthony Braxton had a solo gig. I mean, it was It was a big thing.
All right, that's the heavy shit. Okay.
And then but all us locals ended up getting gigs on it too. I had a triple trio at the Lake Harriet Band Shell that was a free improv group.
Oh wow!
Each trio was one horn, was horn-based drums.
Oh damn!
that was a one-off, But So there was, yeah. So into that part of the '80s, there was also just a lot of action going on.
So to get back a little
yeah.
bit to, you were saying you don't never really took to reading charts as much. You like to memorize
Yeah,
a line.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that this is just like a mechanics question of how would you think, like when you're playing in combo, are you thinking about like the chord changes, or do you like to be that you're thinking of what the original melody is and go off that, or where was your improvisational mind like before the graphical scores and stuff?
My preference is to think about the melody, and I can think about the changes. I'm hardly a great changes player, but that was never quite the idea. But and then of course, anyway. So I prefer to work from melody, and the kind of kid I was too when I started being interested in jazz. The next thing I would do is go to the library and see if there are any books on it.
Yeah.
And so I read a lot, and I read a lot about traditional jazz too, and one of the ideas was that some author made a dichotomy between harmonic improvisation and melodic improvisation.
Okay.
To me, from what I was listening to and stuff like that, and my own predilections, that made a lot of sense.
Okay.
And then Lee Konitz really has something like that. His system 10 steps to an act of pure inspiration. Step number one is play the melody, and then basically, I don't know this system very well, but it's more a matter of different degrees of embellishment or moving away from the original melody while retaining the melody. So yeah, that's my bias. Yeah.
So that's where you come. So it seems real natural that I would think graphical scores, you would have welcomed that with open arms.
Yeah.
Because it's a way that you can communicate and understand in combo without the didacticism of like, this is the exact thing, like for a freer mind,
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what happens, just to kind of fast forward then, covering a lot of years, but I think we have to wrap up so you can eat and set up and stuff.
Well, I mean, what happens is, starting in the very late 70s, I started having a private teaching studio.
Okay.
And I was doing that, and it got pretty big. I was working with about 65 individual students, one-on-one, every week. So
that's heavy. Yeah.
That's what you call making a living teaching.
Yeah, it is.
And gigging and blah blah blah, and then Ellen and I started having a family, and and I'll the straight story is when my oldest son was about 2 years old, I thought, in 3 years he is going to go to kindergarten. I work every night until 9 o'clock and half a Saturday teaching lessons. He will go to school. I will never see him again.
That's right.
You need to change. So I went back to school and started public school teaching.
Okay, right on.
Which very luckily was like the best thing that ever happened to me. It was a great job.
You loved it.
Oh yeah, it's. Actually, I'm subbing tomorrow.
Look at that! You can't stay away. That's
Pretty
great.
Much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just subbed for a couple of my friends, but anyway. So that and
you rolled in that. I mean, you spent like 3 decades.
Yeah,
at
I
Roseville.
taught 30 years. I taught 26 years in Roseville. I was in West St. Paul during elementary band for 4 years before that. So I had 30 years of teaching, starting when I was 36. That's when I was. Yeah. So as the family at a certain stage and the job slowed things down quite a bit.
Yeah.
But they never really completely stopped.
Mhm.
And then
So what maintains through that? So you have that steady gig
yeah.
of teaching music,
Mhm.
and then was there room, I assume, then to keep projects kind of going but more casually, or how did you approach
just
that
not
part?
as many of them.
Uh-huh.
We Ellen and I started a quartet, so just alto sax and bass and drums,
There you go.
and started working with that. And the quartet evolved over time, and then we made it a quintet,
Hmm.
and players changed around and stuff like that, and then it eventually crystallized into something that was really working quite well.
Oh, right
and
on.
then we had a couple of changes. Somebody moving away, this and
Yeah.
that, and whatever,
Yeah.
and then so we were trying out different people for a while, and like, okay, this is good, this is not, and we continued as a quintet for a little while, and then we dropped the second horn.
Okay.
And it sort of evolved into the quartet that we have now.
Okay.
And
Wow.
right now the quartet it's me and Ellen, Chris Bates is on bass, and
Okay.
Dov Husaru is on drums.
Yeah.
So
Wow, man. Let me book you cats here.
and so that is all, and that's Ellen and I write the book for the band.
Okay.
That's it. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, that sounds cool. That brings us hopefully around to your performance tonight
Yeah.
with Phil Hey in duo. And man, thanks so much for doing it and being in the podcast. And I'm really looking forward to hear you guys play.
Well, thanks, Paul.
And so again together we attain terminus. The Khyber Pass Podcast. Pat Moriarty. He performed a duet with Phil Hey, percussionist. And it was a pleasure for me to meet and talk with him about music and about where he's at with improvisation, his history, upbringing, early experiences dating back to 1970. And thank you for listening to the podcast. You are, in fact, the few interested in conversation, ideas, thoughts, the alpha and the omega of improvisation. I've been your host, Paul Metzger. And until next time, good evening.